So Maribeth is president of the consulting firm Red Zone Marketing. That's why she's got that wonderful red wall behind her, and an assistant professor of marketing at Oklahoma State University. Maribeth has written 7 books, including the bestseller The Connectors. She is an international keynote speaker rated as a top 25 C-suite speaker by Meetings and Conventions magazine, and speaks worldwide to audiences on marketing and services. So thank you so much for being here with us today, Maribeth. I'm really excited to hear about how you are engaging students.
Well, thank you very much. So what I'm talking about today is strategies for personally engaging students in any class size. And the reason that I'm talking about that is because it is the one thing that I am super passionate about as a university professor. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But before we get started, I wonder maybe if we can do a poll. I don't know if we have a poll ready to go. Let's just take a look here, see if we do. Well, I don't know if we do have a poll ready to go.
I got it up for you, Maribeth.
Okay. Okay, so we see the poll. I'm wondering what size class that you teach. And the reason for that is because obviously if you're trying to engage your students, it matters what size class you have. The title of this presentation is of any class size, but I teach a very large class. And so we have to use things in a very large class that you may not have to use in a smaller class. But I'd love to hear, and throughout this presentation, I'm going to be watching the chat box because I want to get interaction from you guys. It really matters to me actually to learn about some of this stuff because I've only been a professor for 3 years. Now I've been in practice for many, many years, and that's a different story. And we'll talk about that in a second. But I am definitely someone who loves to learn. I watch every presentation that I possibly can on engagement. So let's see what our results are here today. I know people are still joining us, but let's see. So the results are that most of you are teaching smaller classes and like 30 students or less. So that makes a lot of sense. I get that there's these ideas of how do we engage this small class all the way to how do we engage a really, really large class. So let's talk about that. All right. Thank you for participating in the poll. All right, so I come from a practitioner's lens, which means that for 20 years, I have been running a firm called Red Zone Marketing. I speak publicly, and I have for 20 years, at least once or twice, paid presentations every single week, forever. So I'm doing more than 50 paid presentations a year. And there's only one thing that matters with paid presentations. Are you engaging the audience? Are you giving them value? Are you giving them anything? Because I would never get paid again if I wasn't engaging the audience. So I come from this lens of it's all about engagement. It's about learning, but we learn better if we're engaged. And we have to deliver valuable content, but the valuable content and all of that, the outcome is engagement. So when I came to the university, Oklahoma State, my goal was, and still is, 100% student engagement. Now, that seems a little impossible, and I got a few smirks and eye rolls when I said that that was what I was going to try to do. But it is absolutely still my number one goal is 100% student engagement. And I think that having that goal, we're not going to reach that goal every single time, but having that goal is what's really important to me. Okay, so it's also really important to the students. Because if the student is engaged, there's 3 main things that happen. Number 1, behavioral, meaning that they come to the class excited and ready to be in the classroom. Number 2, they are happy emotionally to be in the classroom. And by the way, these things are the same if you're doing an online class. But the final thing is, and the real output of of all of the things related to engagement is cognitive, meaning that they are actually engaging in the content and learning. And how students learn today is quite a bit different than the way that I learned when I was going to college. And I loved college. I loved my master's program. I loved my PhD program. I love being a student. But there's a lot of students, and even at Oklahoma State, we've got a lot of students that like school isn't their number one thing. They don't love school as much as I do. And so I had to realize I've got to teach this in a way that they are going to be engaged, even if they don't want to be in the classroom, they don't want to be at college, they don't, like, there's all sorts of things that are happening to our students. And so we want to make sure that I want to make sure that they are engaged both behaviorally, emotionally, and cognitively. And the only way to do that is through making sure that the class is entertaining and exciting and they like doing the learning. Now, that doesn't necessarily happen all the time. So if we go back in time, when I was in my undergraduate program, I remember sitting in large lecture halls with zero engagement from the professor, taking notes, memorizing those notes, regurgitating those into 2 separate exams, and that was the class. And I didn't think that that was bad at the time. I just think that there's a better way today, especially the way that students today are and how they grew up and how they've been engaged with everything that they do, including been engaged by their parents for a very long time. So how do we make sure that this college experience is just exactly the most engaging thing that they've ever had? Now, I might be a little Pollyanna about that, but my other goal is 100% student impact. I want to make sure that I am making some imprint or impact on every single student that is in any of my classes, online or in person. Now, I also know, just like 100% engagement, this is not necessarily going to happen in every class or maybe in any class, but it is my goal and my objective. So everything that I do based on how I started, being a professor, I came from the engagement business. If someone's not engaged, you don't get paid. So I kind of look at the university environment in the same exact way. Like if this doesn't work, if I'm not engaging them, if they're not learning, if I'm not impacting them, then probably I'm not going to get paid. Now, that may or may not be true in the university setting, but that's how I think about it. Okay, so what classes do I teach? I teach the Principles of Marketing, which is a fully flipped class. And by the way, in the Principles of Marketing class, this class was developed by Kinda Wilson. Kinda Wilson then took the class that we use today at Oklahoma State, and it is the Stukent version. So now you can get this at Stukent. So if any of you teach the Principles of Marketing, it's very similar to what we are teaching. We don't use the textbook, we use videos, but we use all of those video cases that Kinda developed. So Principles of Marketing, and that's where I'm coming from in the in-class, because that's the one class that I teach in the classroom. And my classes, I teach 3 different classes, 150 students in each class. So they're large classes. And then I also manage the course for the other professor that also teaches. He doesn't teach as many as I do, but he teaches a lot of students as well in the same course. I also teach a course called Content Marketing. That's a fully online course. I do use the Stukent business writing textbook for that. And I am actually in the process of writing a textbook with another professor at Oklahoma State, Jerry Rackley, who is also part of the Principles of Marketing course. We are writing a course on services marketing. My background is in services marketing. All the work that we do in our consulting firm, Red Zone Marketing, is all about services marketing. So most of the work is in the financial services business. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about 4 things. And again, for those of you that just joined later, I really would like to have interaction. So I'm going to tell you what I do to engage students, but in no way, shape, or form do I believe that this is the absolute best way to do it. I don't know. This is what I've come together with, and I'd love to get your feedback and find out how you're doing these certain things that you're doing in your classroom, because I think this is a great learning session for all of us. So please use the chat box And I will share with you at the end of each section, hey, I'd love to get some feedback on how you're doing this. So again, I'm going to share with you what I'm doing, but by no means do I think this is either the absolute right way or the only way to do it. It just is the way that we do it. And the reason that I'm doing this presentation, I believe, is because we're at Oklahoma State, we are converting more students to become marketing majors. So this principles of marketing class is taught to everyone in the business school and other schools that, like engineering students or other students that may want to take this class. We convert more students into marketing students than in any other major in the business school. So we are really increasing and adding more marketing students, and it happens after this class. So we know that it sometimes, they might become a marketing student or marketing major before this class, but typically it is happening after this class. So we know that it's working, but again, it's not the only way, and it may not be the best way, but I'll share with you what I do. Okay, so the first thing is, actually, let me go back to the agenda. So the first thing is we're going to talk about the pregame. And by the way, we take a gamification sort of mode to this class because, again, we're all about engagement. The Principles of Marketing is a fully flipped class. So when they're in the classroom, it is all about engagement. And we do use this game that we call the marketing game. And that's part of the Principles of Marketing course. So number one, pregame. How do we get students excited about the course before they even take the course? Because what I realized early on is there's a lot of students that are a finance student, an accounting student. They don't necessarily want to take this class. They have to take this class. So I wanted to let them know from the very beginning, this is going to be different. And I'll share it with you how I do that. Number two is stats. I want to make sure that they know who's in this class and who are their team members and other interesting things. Number three is the red zone. And that is, I believe that we're in the red zone when we're interacting in the classroom. How do we do it in the classroom and how do we do it outside of the classroom? And finally, what do we do after the class in terms of career focus and helping students? Okay, so number one, pre-game, the course overview. So in the course overview, we really look at being able to set them up to give them this is going to be different than what you thought it is. This is active learning, but students may not know what active learning is. So we send them emails explaining this is the course, this is the schedule, this is what we're going to be doing throughout the semester. I know students don't always read those emails at the beginning of the semester, but some of them do. And so one of the things we do is send out advanced emails. The other thing we do is open up the class quite early. So if students want to get into Canvas, and we send announcements through Canvas, and we show a pre-course video. So I do a little as this is what this course is about. And this may not be what you think this course is going to be about, because I want to, again, get them ready to come into the classroom and be incredibly engaged, 100%. And then I also have pre-course Zoom office hours. And I started doing this during COVID. And I got a lot of people to take me up on pre-course before the course even starts doing Zoom office hours, because they had a concern about this or concern about this. And we wanted to make sure that we were addressing all of those concerns. So we opened up the course quickly. But then I realized, wow, that's actually a good thing to do because students want to know more about this. So even for the summer class that I'm teaching right now, which is a fully online Principles of Marketing class and the content marketing class, I've had numerous pre-course Zoom office hours. And, they just want to know more about me, or they want to share more about themselves, or they want to ask me career questions or whatever it might be. But it all starts with them watching that pre-video, because then they get an idea of who I am and what this is going to all be about. Okay, so I would like to know what you guys are doing in terms of pre-game. So before the course starts, what are some of the things that you guys are doing right now to engage students and let them know that this is whatever the course is, but this is going to be unlike what you might expect it to be? So I'm going to look in the chat and see if anyone is giving me any ideas here. Have each student, so Mark Jensen says, have each student record a 60-second video of themselves on Flipgrid. Now that is really great. So now, you know, if you have 150 students in each class, that might be a lot. But if the student records 60-second videos, and I used to do this, I taught a course every summer at Columbia, and I would have the students do this. This is a great idea. Have them record a 60-second video. Yep, we've got open Canvas early and send announcements. Students intro themselves in class. Well, I'm not talking about in class. I'm talking about before class, because we'll talk about what we do in class in a second. Students submit favorite songs and you build a class playlist. I love that. I heard another professor that did that. So it kind of gets them excited, like, hey, pre-class, we're going to have your music playing, which, by the way, I've had to vet a little bit. I use my kids who are in their 20s to vet some of these songs, because I don't know what kind of words are in some of these songs, but just a point to note. Yeah, the playlist idea is great. Introduction into a discussion forum. And a discussion forum is actually a good place to post those videos and let students watch the videos of other students talking about who they are and what they're all about. Pre-video worked really great for easing COVID anxiety. Thank you, Michael Marin, for that. That's absolutely true. I mean, I think as professors, we learned a lot about how to be better professors during COVID, because there were so many things that the students were feeling and that we were feeling and that were happening. Are we in the classroom? Are we virtual? Are we hybrid? And there was just so much uncertainty that I think we had to all get better at being professors. I know that I certainly worked hard at doing that. Hopefully it came out okay. Let's see. Keep my Spotify set to block explicit lyrics. Thank you. I'll have to try that. That's a great idea, because yeah, I'm never sure what kind of songs are going to be playing. Okay, so I really appreciate all of these ideas. I think, you know, this is all about pregame. Before the course starts, what are you doing to get students engaged? And again, my whole goal was always to let them know that this isn't going to be what you think it is, because this is not a course where you listen to some professor talk and talk and talk, you take notes and you take 2 exams. It's not that kind of a course. And the only way that I can let them know that that's not that kind of a course is to actually let them know. And so we do it with emails, we do it with pre-videos, we open up Canvas, and I'm going to start the video thing because I think that's a great idea. So thank you to everyone who has participated in this. I really appreciate it. Okay. So the second thing that we're talking about today is stats. So statistics, which is, again, some of the professors that went into the chat said that, you know, that you did some of this work. Well, we do this in the classroom. So we use the theme, again, the whole theme is a game. So we use the theme of doing a player card, like a baseball card or a football card. And you can have them write down any questions. You can write down any questions you want. We give these to the students, they fill them out. And then what happens after they fill them out is that we ask them to randomly share them with other people in their group. And then they look at them, and this is a really great way of getting to know other people in the group, because they've got to guess who's this person, who's that person. We typically have 30 groups in each class of 5 people. Now, sometimes we've got more groups and sometimes we have less, and sometimes people end up shifting around. But when we start off class, we've got about 30 groups with 5 students in each group. So we do this group exchange, just asking kind of fun questions and letting them get to know each other a little bit better. But the reason that I really love this is because I take these cards and I group them by teams. And then with those teams, because I'll walk around during class and we'll talk to each team. Well, now I've got my cards and I'll actually bring them with me and say, well, wait a minute, whose favorite food is this? And so I will use that to help me, because there's no way that with 150 kids and with 3 classes back to back of 150 that I'm going to remember students' names or, all of that. But I want to, and this is one of the best ways for me to do that, is I go group by group and learn. Now, they also know that as I'm going around group by group, I know who's in the classroom. Now, we take attendance and do all that, but they know that I'm going around and talking and asking questions. And, if I've got a student athlete in one of my classes, I'll say something about, how the games went over the weekend or whatever it is. But I am really trying to engage. I don't spend a lot of time with each group because it's not about me, it's about them. And I want to give them time with the first day that they have in class of being able to work as a group. And that's the first day of class every week throughout the semester, is they're working on group assignments. So we have these video cases that are available through Stukent, and the video cases are a different company that comes with a real live one marketing problem. It might be a social media issue, or it might be whatever it is, but they come with one marketing problem. And then the students that week, their goal is to solve that marketing problem. And when they solve that, and every problem is different. So they're going to deal with things like pricing, and they're going to deal with things like social media, and they're going to deal with branding, and it goes across the board, and it correlates exactly with what what the flipped classroom portion is, all of the videos and information that share more of the concepts and the theory. So they look at the concepts, they read about the theory, and then they come into class and they actually get to actively implement what they've learned. So, but this player card is the way that we started, and it's the way that I can feel like I am actually really interested in every single one of the students. And I am, but it's hard when you've got 150 students. So this is one way that I can bring them with me and talk to each group. And it has worked very well. So I would love to get, oh, and by the way, I have my own player card, because why wouldn't I? I have my own player card actually for my business. So I've always had a football card for my business. My business is called Red Zone Marketing. And if you have a company named Red Zone Marketing, then I mean, it's an analogy to football. So I have a football card. Now, the reason that I don't ask students, for a lot of different reasons, for height and weight and things like that, is because because I don't tell the truth about it myself. I don't expect anyone else to reveal personal information, but I do have this here. So behind weight, it says without the pads, which is a football thing. My husband, 28 years of marriage, says that it should say this week behind my weight. But actually, nobody ever put me on the scale before I got my own football business cards printed up. I put whatever weight I wanted on there. And that, after COVID, is not even close. Okay, so other ideas about how to share information in class. Oh, and we have one person, Kevin, who is not a Packer fan, must be a Bears fan or a Vikings fan. But yes, I am a Packers fan. I'm born in Wisconsin and actually getting ready to move back to Wisconsin pretty soon here. Kathy has a question. In the weekly client marketing problem part of the student book video set. Oh, yeah. So right, the weekly client marketing problem is part of the video cases that are available at Stukent. And again, Kinder Wilson developed those video cases for Oklahoma State, then took them to Stukent. So we use the exact same things that are being used at Stukent, and they are amazing because they keep the students engaged. And they're companies that are real. They're not cases from many, many years ago. They are things that are happening right now, real businesses with real marketing problems. Okay, so any ideas about, other ideas about how to reveal information about students with each other and also with the professor? Because again, my goal is to engage, and you can't engage if you don't know them and if they're just a number in the class. And so I try to make sure that that's not the case. Okay, question is, do you include their photo on the card? The answer is no. Now I certainly could do that, but with so many students, and we don't, but I walk around group to group, so I get to know who those students are, but I do not ask for a picture. If it was a smaller class, I would probably ask them to do an online card like that and put their picture on it. I think that would be a great idea. And yes, because sometimes we do remember faces better than names. There's no doubt about that. I just have them do it in class. So we hand out the cards, they put their names on the cards, because that's one of the things that I think we all found out during COVID is that some students are just not engaged at all. And they're not looking at their emails, they're not looking at their announcements, they're not watching things in Canvas or whatever platform you might have. So when I have them in the classroom, I make sure that I get them to do the work that I need them to do when they're in the classroom. And we have a pretty strict attendance policy, so we try to get them in the class. Okay, so Meg Hartman says, when I take attendance, I ask a question for them to answer. Classes are less than 30, so it doesn't take too long. Each class section is a different question, anything from favorite thing about the fall to if you want $1 million. I love that. So it's getting them engaged about things that are important to them at the beginning of every class. I love it. Zorana says, we had students post a still life selfie, bringing various items that they care about in one photo and telling the story behind them. I love that. It's show and tell, and we'll talk about show and tell in a little bit. Show and tell was something that was really cool when you were like in the first grade, but show and tell is always cool. I would love to do some show and tell right now, but I'm not going to. So Lara says, I have them create a Google slide collage with their favorites. That's wonderful. Anything that engages, lets them share what's important to them with everyone else. And again, these are really important for, especially because we're working in groups. So I want the groups to know each other and have respect for each other. But I also want to use this as my opportunity to get to know them. Now, by the way, if you're going to ask all of these questions of your students, I would say that you have to be ready to answer them yourself. And I certainly do that. I do a bit of sharing. And again, I don't talk in class for more than 10 or 15 minutes. My goal in class is not to deliver a lecture. My goal is to engage. So I'll deliver some information about a review of some things, and we'll talk about that in a second. But my goal is not to speak for a very long time, but if I do speak, I want it to be authentic, and I want it to be sharing a little bit about me as well. And so I try to do that. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Great feedback. Thank you guys very much for the feedback on this section. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the red zone, and this is interaction. So for those of you that are football fans, and hopefully if you're a football fan, you're a Packers fan, but for those of you that aren't, that's okay. The red zone is the final 20 yards before you score. So on the football field, it is the most important place because it's where you win or lose the game. It's where the whole field tightens up and everything becomes much more difficult for the defense and the offense in the red zone. That's why they keep in football now red zone statistics, because it matters so much what happens inside of that red zone. And so I consider when you're in that classroom, that's the red zone. It's my red zone. It's their red zone. It's the red zone. This is where the interaction happens. This is where the impact happens. And again, I don't do lectures. They get their lectures in video from me and from other professors inside of Canvas. And so they get short video lectures, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, something like that, sometimes less. And then they take quizzes. So they watch videos, take quizzes, watch videos, take quizzes. And that's what they do when they're not in the class. And they need to do those things before they get to class. So we put the due dates in a certain way so that they've done those things prior to getting to class, because then we want them to use that information. So I am not talking for a very long time, but we do things that are interesting and hopefully engaging in class. But also we engage in learning in the classroom. It's just not from me speaking to them. It's from us having conversations. I have incentives to participate in class. I learned that was actually a good thing, and opportunities to meet outside of class. So let's talk a little bit more about what those things are. So in class, we do things that I'm sure a lot of you do, which is maybe do a Kahoot. So we take all of the information that they're learning and have taken quizzes on outside of class in Canvas from those videos, and we take different information that then appears in those quizzes, and we do Kahoot quizzes, but we score them via the groups. So the groups get to participate and figure out how to answer. We usually have 3 Kahoot questions, and their group gets points by doing that. So they also want to come to class and really make sure that they're prepared with that information that they learned, the theory and the concepts on the topics for this week, because they could win more points in the Kahoot. And we have a leaderboard that we put up, and we rank the groups via the leaderboard, and students get very competitive about moving up and down that leaderboard. We post it every single class period. So we also give group incentives to participate. So I may ask some questions about the previous case or the current case in class in the short period of time that I'm speaking. And when I ask them, I expect them to answer. And I realized in a large classroom, students feel uncomfortable answering, and there was all sorts of, or it was the same students always answering. So I said, and this actually started from, we had a guest speaker who came into our class, and he was talking about customer service. And so I said, students, I want you to make sure that when he says, do you have any questions, that you have questions prepared. And so they didn't have any questions. And I thought, I know they have questions. I just know that they have questions. And so I said, if you have a question, call out your group, raise your hand, call out your group number, and then give me the question, and I will give you a point. And so we started doing this, and then, the groups are getting together, figuring out what questions they're going to ask, raising their hand. Group 4, question is, and they would name off their question. And I thought, well, this is great for having a guest speaker, but what about for their regular professor, which is me? So I do the same thing. If I ask a question about a case, about something that they learned in the concepts in my opening, 10, 15 minutes, they are all answering, they're all raising their hands, and I'll call on who was the first one that I thought had raised their hand, and we give them points. And we don't give them a lot of points, but it doesn't matter. If we give them 1 point in a 1,000-point class and we disperse that amongst their group, they get excited about answering the questions. So we do it, and it works. And so I think that's one of the things, because I found if I'm asking business people when I'm speaking, if they have any questions, they're going to have questions. They may be paying to be there. Students are paying to be there too, but they have a different level of confidence in asking questions. And I thought, I got to get these students to ask questions and really be engaged in this class, because they're going to learn more from the people that are around them, from the other students. So then in class, we have them do the group work. So after I'm done speaking and doing the Kahoot and doing all the other, intro stuff that we do, then they are in their groups and they start working on the case. So we play the case video and they start working on the case. Then myself and the TAs walk around and take attendance, and then also will engage with the students. And that's when I bring my little cards around and do that. But the other thing is, it's a great time to answer any questions that they might have. Very rarely do we get questions, because they can finish, they have several days to finish the case. But if they leave the classroom, we very rarely get questions afterwards, because we're answering them in the classroom. If they say, well, what does this mean? Or how can you give me some examples of what this is? We're able to do that. And then we do show and tell. So we have, in a week class, we have, let's say, a Monday class and a Wednesday class. On Monday, they work on the case. On Wednesday, we do discussion about the case. Now, discussion about the case isn't necessarily, I realized also that if someone is answering a question and it's not sort of group related or whatever, that other students will fade away and not necessarily listen as closely as I wanted them to. So we make sure that we've got this interaction on the second day that is, because again, my goal is 100% engagement. So it can't be one person talking and everyone like looking around or doing something else. So what I make sure to do is the interaction is get them up out of their seats. So we have them, we'll do a show and tell of the case. So they will have to pick one person in their group that will have on their computer, laptop, iPad or whatever it might be, information about how they did the case on the previous Monday. And so they will then share what they did, but the groups will go around and listen to each other group talking about their case. And then they will rank what they thought was the best ideas. And they'll pick their top 3, and then we share it and we give points for the people that have the top cases. So there's, other incentives to get them to participate. But now they're standing up, they're walking around the classroom, they're listening to what people are talking about and how they did their case. So they're learning and seeing outside of what other people are actually doing beyond their own group. And it's really great. Now, during COVID, we couldn't do that. During COVID, we had a discussion board. It was much less effective, but it did work because we forced them to do the discussion board, meaning that they got points every week to do the discussion board. They had to comment on at least 2 other cases. And that's how we also do it in the online version. But in this classroom, it's great to get them up out of their seats, walking around. They don't have their phones on them. They don't have, their computers with them. They're just walking around learning. And so we like to do a lot of show and tell and gamification. Let's see. Okay, so I've got a question from Zorana. Do you shorten live class time to account for the video lessons? So we have a Monday, Wednesday, technically Friday class. They don't come on Friday. We only have Mondays and Wednesdays because we call the third class period during that week the time that they would put in watching those videos online. So if it's a Monday, Wednesday class, Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, they're only coming to class on Mondays and Wednesdays. So we have made up for the time that they're spending doing all that lecture time watching the videos. Okay, so outside of class, what do we do to engage? So outside of class, I have in-person office hours when it's not COVID. And I love in-person office hours, and I have students show up, but I encourage them to come and see me. Now, I don't give them incentives to come and see me. Maybe someday I will do that, but I absolutely love when they come to see me because a lot of the students that have actually come to see me end up becoming my TAs. And I have a lot of TAs, and they're the ones that are, but those are the students that have more confidence and that are more extroverted perhaps, and they're coming in to ask questions and get to know their professor. That's not everybody, but I do the in-person office hours. I do the virtual office hours, and actually the virtual office hours are great for your online students, but I have more in-person students, so we'll also do the virtual office hours. And sometimes I'll even have the entire group that comes in and does the virtual office hours. So, group 6 is all meeting with me and they're asking questions about the particular case or whatever. And I love that as well. In virtual office hours, I will always start it talking about them, asking about them rather. So tell me a little bit about what's your major, what year are you, where are you from, and just getting some information, even if it's a group, because it's important. They know more about me, I know, than I know about them in most cases. So, and I also will have their cards, so I get to figure some of that out, but I want to hear it from them. So there's a couple other things that I do, and these might be, I don't know, people might think these are weird or something, but I started doing happy hours without alcohol with my TAs because I wanted to thank them for all the work they were doing. And I thought, you know what, doing happy hours for the students that want to engage. I mean, if I say, hey, I'm going to buy some hors d'oeuvres and you guys can come, let's just talk about the class, talk about whatever you want to talk about. We might have 10 or 15 students at a happy hour or even a coffee time. Now, I found that coffee time is less popular. I'll buy them a coffee, but it's less popular because it's early and students don't necessarily want to come in early. And I will do a lot of this on Fridays when we don't have class. And I know that they don't have anything to do during that class period. Still doesn't matter. Coffee time, not as popular as happy hour. I will have them sign up for happy hour, meaning because I don't want 50 students to show up. I mean, that would be great, but it's sort of defeating the purpose of me actually getting to know more on a one-on-one basis. And sometimes I'll have one student, but most of the time I'll have around 10 that will come to that. And it's a lot of fun because they get to know each other, and they're usually students that aren't from their particular groups. Mandatory group office hours. That's in my online class. I will have mandatory group office hours. Now, I don't give them incentives for it, but I tell them that they must do it. They listen and they do it. But at some point, if that stops to work, I may end up giving points for the mandatory group office hours. And And I also do something that I just started this past semester, which is performance messaging, which means that, so we have, it's not necessarily on the cases, but sometimes I'll do it on the cases. In Canvas, and I don't know, everyone uses different programs, but in Canvas, I will go in at the top where the grading is for each particular assignment that's due. And I can take a look at who scored well. I can sort them by different things. So if I had students that really underperformed, we have 2 exams. If I have students that really underperform or like got a perfect score or somewhere in between, I've got 3 levels of performance messaging that I will send. And, again, we have a lot of students, but because I'm teaching 150, 150, 150. We also have just as many of those students in 3 other sections. And we all have one shared Canvas portal. So I will send a message to all the students that underperformed, asking them, is there something that I can do to help? Is there a reason? And I will often get responses like, thank you, I didn't know you were even paying attention. But sometimes there's problems and issues, and sometimes they just missed it. And I had a baseball student that was, I was on a baseball trip, I totally forgot we had the exam, those kinds of things. But they know that I'm paying attention. But I also do it for those high performing students who really got great grades in the top 90, 95%, depending on how it works. I will do a sort and I'll send them all an email saying, congratulations, you did awesome on the exam. And it doesn't go to a group. It looks like it's going individually to each student. And then I've got those students in the middle that can either go either way. And those are actually the most important ones, where I'm trying to get them to understand that I'm paying attention and that I really want you to do better on your individual written assignment or on your exam, or maybe it's cases. And if I have students that aren't participating in their group, I will send them an individual message. Now, does it take a lot of time? Yeah, it takes a lot of time. But again, my goal is 100% engagement and 100% impact. And if that's my goal and I'm really true to that goal, I can't do anything else but do this. So these are some of the things that I do. I'd love to hear about some of the things that you guys do in the classroom and outside of the classroom to engage and impact the students that you have. So I would love to take a look at the chat board. We have a Browns fan? Okay, all right. Any ideas in the classroom, outside of the classroom, to engage? And again, beyond engaging, just doing your lecture and asking questions, but some of these unique things, because the things that I do today, I have learned from other professors who started doing those things. I don't know that there's any of these things that I just came up with on my own. I've learned from others, and I'd love to learn from you guys. Okay, so Laura says, the extroverts will ask questions or respond, but others won't. Yeah, using videos to have them have a video response in Flipgrid so that they can take time with it. Yep, that's absolutely true. Some people want to think about their question or think about their answer. So sending emojis to encourage and value them. I think that's great. And that's for a high school class. But guess what? I mean, the thing that I found about just reaching out to those students is that they know I'm paying attention. And I believe that they know that I care. I tell them that I care, but I think it's more about showing them that. Is the format of happy hour different from coffee time? No, happy hour and coffee time are kind of the same thing. I just want to get about 10 students together and we just have conversations. There's nothing that's planned or anything like that. We just are having conversations. We get to know each other. We, drink coffee, drink water, whatever. Again, happy hour sounds like it's alcohol. So I think that the students are very excited about that. But I tell them there is no alcohol at the happy hour, but they still, we'll go to a cool little Mexican restaurant or go someplace. And they like that. They like to have a little extra food. So that is all good. Okay, so casual competitions where creativity winners earn dollar store prizes. Though that 150 student class might be a problem, right? I might run out of money if I'm giving a lot of giving competition dollar store money to people, but I think that's a great idea for smaller classrooms. Have Ask Me Anything Q&A running on menti.com during class, so answer questions at the end of class. Yeah, I do like that, especially if you're delivering more of a lecture format. I mean, we're walking around during class, so we're not necessarily, it's not the same kind of class. And again, this is an active learning marketing class. It's not the same if you're doing a marketing research or some other kind of class where you need to speak more and deliver more information that they're not getting in that flipped version. Mark says, I post articles on Canvas for each class period about interviewing, job hunting. Also, I always share any job internships. Yeah, I do the same thing. We'll talk about that in a second. I think that's a great idea because that's what they care about, right? Hey, I can maybe get you an internship. Okay, well, all of a sudden I'm a little bit more interested in talking to you. Having the class sign up for Remind app gives me direct messages and access to them. Yes. Yeah, so you can send a quick text message as opposed to messaging through Canvas, which is a great idea because we know that some students don't look at Canvas on a regular basis. I mean, again, if I was a college student, I'd be looking at Canvas all the time, but the students aren't like me. They're, some of them are and some of them aren't, and some of them aren't quite as engaged, and some of them are working 3 jobs and going to school and doing other things. So we have to meet them where they're at. So I love that. Let's Remind app. I love that idea. Q&A works in large class, 100+ students, plus anonymous for shy students and voting on their questions. Yeah, I do like that. So the Ask Me Anything Q&A running during class is good, is really good. Again, letting students engage the way that they feel most comfortable engaging. And there's a lot of students that if I wasn't incentivizing them would probably never talk in class. And I'd rather have them talk and engage and however we can meet them where they're at. Okay, so let's go to the final section that we're talking about today, and it's the post-game wrap. So, we talked about, we had pregame, we had stats, we had the red zone, and now we've got the post-game wrap up, and it's really about career focus. So during the class periods, I will bring guest speakers in, I will have videos, I will do short things, and typically I'll do that on day 2 when they're not working on their case. They discuss the case, and then that's probably the day that I'd bring in a guest speaker or somebody that's career focused, giving them ideas about different careers and different options for marketing, because marketing is so diverse, and it doesn't matter what major you're in, there's so many diverse different ways that you can apply your marketing focus. But the other thing that I share a lot with students is that if I know you and if we've met and we've talked and I know your grades, and I'll write you a reference letter, and I write, I don't know, this last semester I probably wrote 30, and I think that was kind of low. But probably because we were still sort of in person, but not quite, we were only 1 day a week in person. So, but 30 reference letters means that there's 30 students that had enough confidence to come and ask me, and they know that I have to know them if I'm going to do that. If I don't know them, then it's kind of a weird situation, but, and I share with them job opportunities. Another professor said that as well. I love to share job opportunities. So I will tell them that I get lots of job opportunities to me because the head of the marketing department, oftentimes he knows I teach a big class. He'll send me, hey, I've got this from an alumni who's looking for somebody, a social media specialist, or maybe it's an internship or whatever it might be. And so I actually have virtual office hours just to talk about job opportunities and internships. If you're interested, tell me a little bit about you and what you're interested in. I put them into a database that I have. And then if I get something, and it just happened, we had somebody who was really interested, or a job that was social media focused. Well, if I've got a student that I know is really interested in learning more about social media for an internship, or maybe it's their job, then I forward those students' names along in their resumes. So that is a way that I can help and provide impact. And because I've got people that are sending me those job opportunities, I can do that. Also, we talk about major and minor and career focus. And a lot of the pre-call Zooms that I do prior to the class is talking about career stuff. I think I'm really going to love marketing, but tell me about what are the different kinds of jobs that I could get in marketing, and what's kind of the pay in these different jobs. And so I've had to not only learn about, and because I know my career and my, in my industry, which is services marketing for financial services, I know what the pay is, but it's not necessarily the same in other industries. So I've had to learn, and I keep in touch with students after they have graduated and kind of figure out how they're doing and what they're doing, and are they in a sales related role, more marketing related role, whatever it might be. So yeah, so that's that's my game. The post game wrap up is career focus, and I make sure to stay in touch with students even after, especially if they're in my database of different people that might have certain job interests, even if they've been gone from school for a couple of years. I just had a situation where there was somebody who was my TA a few years ago, and I know that she was really interested in a particular kind of a job. I got an opportunity that came to me, and I forwarded it along to her. She's like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much." Now, I can't get them the job necessarily, but at least I can forward the information along. And again, my goal, 100% engagement, 100% impact. I know I'm not reaching that goal, but if that's my focus, I'm going to get a lot closer than I would if it wasn't. So any ideas that anyone has on doing some of this career post wrap up stuff after the class is over? I would love to hear some things that you guys have on that. Don't have anything coming in yet. So the question, so Jerry Rackley, hi, Jerry. Thank you for being on this. Jerry is the other professor that I'm writing the textbook on for students on services marketing. Jerry says, I encourage my students to connect with me via LinkedIn, and I'll post job opportunities there. Great idea. I do connect with them on LinkedIn, but I don't necessarily do the job opportunities there. So that's I just learned something from a professor I know very well. Okay, so we have our students fill out Google Forms with their information so we can come up with our alumni students. Great idea. Amen on LinkedIn, and I totally agree with that. I send out a weekly email the past few weeks with jobs and internships. Love it. And Sherry says, do you do this within Canvas, or do you have a website or Facebook page to keep everyone and everything updated? I just use a database, like a Excel file kind of a thing, but that's what I use to keep track of it. So it's not very super sophisticated, but that's what I do. And Vicky says, I've had several individual calls with students about career paths and supply chain. Yeah, I mean, if they know that they can reach out to you, they will. And but they have to feel comfortable and feel like you've got their best interest in mind. And I think in some classes, and even in the classes that I teach, if some student is getting a poor grade in the class, well, it's not because I've got anything against them. It's because they're simply not doing the work, but they may not be very happy with the class. But those are the students that I'm trying to reach out with on a regular basis to say, hey, I know you're not performing that well, but I really do care about you performing better. And I really do care about your success in this class. So that is what we do. And so that's that. So thank you very much for participating in this course. I know that in this ProfCon session. And if any of you have any questions post this, my information is below. I'm on Twitter at mbkuzmeski, and it's maribeth.kuzmeski@okstate.edu. So thank you very much, and check out our new services marketing textbook that's coming out soon. I don't know exactly when, but it's coming out soon, and there'll be a sim with it, and it'll be awesome.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that. If y'all haven't heard from Maribeth before, we actually did a webinar on services marketing with Jerry Rackley, and that was a lot of fun. And I hope it's going to do really well. So I hope it comes soon. But thank you so much, Maribeth, for being on today. really great hearing about your engaging activities and ideas and things like that. I feel like you might have gotten 100% engagement from today's session. All the engagement in the chat. We have our final keynote of today and of Prof Con, Kristen. She's going to be talking about COVID and client-based projects. The link is in the chat for you to join there. Can't wait to see you guys there. Thank you.